Today's lesson is about adding real numbers. Remember, real numbers can be whole numbers, integers, fractions, decimals, so we'll take a look at a little bit of each. When adding numbers with the same signs, you just add and keep the sign. It's a pretty basic rule. 11 plus 12, you've been doing something like that forever. It's a 23. A positive plus a positive gives me a positive. Same signs, just add and keep the sign. Let's take a look at the one below it. Negative 10 plus a negative 5. The signs are the same, just add and keep the sign. Now let's look at decimals. Remember, decimals are real numbers as well. Anything that can be written as a terminating or repeating decimal is a rational number or real number. Okay, so let's go ahead and add, and we'll get 6 4/10. The last one on this slide is fractions. The fractions have the same denominator, makes life a lot easier. We just add the numerators, and this simplifies to one whole. Now that's adding with the signs the same. When the signs are unlike or opposites, you subtract and keep the sign of the number with the greater absolute value. Let's take a look at a few of these. 6 plus negative 2. Well, 6 has a greater absolute value than 2. The signs are unlike. I'll subtract, and my answer will be positive. Looking at the next one, again, I have two unlike signs, two opposite signs, so I will subtract, and this will also be a positive. This will be a positive 13. The next problem, again, unlike signs, 9 has a greater absolute value, so it's positive. My answer will be 5. Fourth one, negative 18 plus 7. Unlike signs or opposite signs, you subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. I have a negative 11. What happens when you have more than two add-ins? You can use your left to right rule, or sometimes people like to gather or collect the like signs together. Remember, these are all addition operations, so I can simply do my left to right if I'd like and keep it in the order that I saw it, or I could put like signs together and just deal with my signs only once. There are people that prefer it this way they don't have to keep going from sign to sign. They'll just have the answer, the final answer, based on that one last operation. Once again, I have 4 add-ins in this case, so I could, by commutative property, let's move these two center terms and make them in their opposite direction. I can now go ahead and add my positives. I can add my negatives. And now I see my signs are unlike, so I'll subtract and keep the sign of the greater absolute value. And that's my basic rules of addition. One thing I should bring up is that when you take a number plus its additive inverse or opposite, my sum will be 0. So whether I'm dealing with two numbers or a series of add-ins, I can use my left to right rule, or I can use my combine like terms method. Both work equally well. After we do some more practice on addition, we will be looking at our subtraction. Now, subtraction has a basic rule, and the basic rule is to subtract b from a, you just add the opposite. You keep and add the opposite, or some people call it keep, change, change. Whatever you remember from previous classes works here. I suggest you rewrite each one as an addition sentence. You keep and add the opposite. So I keep and change, change. Keep and add the opposite. Now I have an addition equation, and therefore I subtract, because the signs are opposites, keep the sign of the greater absolute value. Again, negative 4 minus 7. I keep and add the opposite. I have two negatives, and when the signs are the same, I just add. Let's keep going. I have 8 plus the opposite of negative 3 is 3, and that will give me an 11. This one has two subtraction operations. You can do it in two parts, or you can just rewrite the entire thing. You can keep and add the opposite, and if you want, you can get that answer, and then you would keep and add the opposite. So if I went left to right, I would have a negative 1 plus 4, which would give me 3. If I wanted to combine my like signs, I could do that as well. This last one is a bit tricky. It has a subtraction and it has an addition. So that means I'm looking at two different operations, so I need to be careful. I have negative 5, I keep and add the opposite, and then I just add the negative 3. So now I have all the same signs. I can use my left to right rule and get a negative 13 plus a negative 3, and that would give me a negative 16. So your rule of subtraction is to add the opposite, keep and add the opposite. We'll be doing more practice on this in class. See you then.